Call the meeting to order for the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting for Monday, December 4th, 2023. I'd like to welcome everyone. I'd like to remind everyone, please silence your mobile devices, which I haven't done myself. And as you come to the lectern to speak, make sure the red light indicator is on so those listening on YouTube can hear what you have to say, please. Gentlemen, first order of business is the approval of the agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. And Madam Clerk, for clarification, we have all commissioners in attendance, our county finance officer, our county manager, and our county attorney for the record. Item number 3 is organization of the board. Gentlemen, these were all placeholders. So placeholder number 1 is election of chairman for 2024. Any questions or comments, gentlemen? Then without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 2 will be the election of vice chairman for 2024. Once again, it is a placeholder item. Any questions or comments, gentlemen? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Brings us to item number 3. Appointment of county attorney for 2024. Once again, this is a placeholder. Gentlemen, any questions or comments? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. That brings us to item number 4, appointment of county attorney, tax attorney, for 2024. Once again, this is a placeholder. Gentlemen, any questions or comments? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. That'll bring us on to item number 5, appointment of the clerk to the board for 2024. Once again, this is a placeholder. Gentlemen, any questions or comments? There being none, this item, without objection, will remain on the agenda. All right, this brings us to presentations, section 4. Pet of the Month, presented by our good friend Caitlin Selmeyer, our Animal Services Director. Caitlin, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having us back for another month. We're really excited to be able to present to you another cat and dog that's available for adoption through Animal Services this month, as well as update you on some programs that we have going on at Animal Services.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? Just one, how's the population?
Population is great. We had a wonderful adoption. We didn't even have an adoption event. We just had a lot of people turning out for adoptions on Saturdays. So I left the shelter. I don't want to jinx ourselves, but we had 7 open dog runs when I left, and we had several open cat kennels. So adoptions are picking up, and we're really happy to see that. So
fantastic news. Any other questions or comments, gentlemen?
How did your fundraiser turn out? I know you'll give us more on that later, but I kind of want you to have 2 opportunities to brag about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about the Jordan's Way fundraiser. So that was a lot of fun. We initially got into that because we really wanted to build up some staff morale, and it was really great exposure for our shelter to be in that fundraising opportunity. But we ended up exceeding our expectations. So we raised just under $10,000, if I am correct on that. So I can give you a better statistic hopefully at this upcoming meeting, but that was a lot of fun. I know you guys came down and participated with that, so it was a really great time for our staff, and our community got behind it, and it was a really great time for everyone.
Any other questions, comments, gentlemen?
Did you want to make another announcement to look for? Anybody in particular?
Yes, I know Johnny's dog is missing, poor little guy, so we need to be on the lookout for his little chihuahua. Can you remind me of his name? Jasper. He's a cute little chihuahua, and so he is missing, so if our community can keep an eye out for him, that would be much appreciated.
Has there been any type of rash of dogs getting taken?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
As far as dogs getting taken, there's been several in the county as of late, just reading different things. Is that trend or?
You know, that is, we are very aware of there's a current TikTok challenge that we are keeping our eye on. We have not had a drastic number of reports of stolen animals. Typically, anytime an animal is stolen, that report will go to the sheriff's office because that's considered stolen property. So that would be something that they would help facilitate. But there is currently a TikTok challenge where people are being challenged to take dogs and dump them off in a neighboring county. I don't know what fund that is, but that is something, if anybody is aware of that, please report that to us or your local authorities to make them aware of it, because that's not okay for people to be doing that.
So can we put the word out about Jasper and the surrounding counties then?
Absolutely. We are, I'm happy to send that out to make sure Jasper is covered all across western North Carolina. Make sure that we have eyes everywhere for that little guy.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any other questions or comments? Caitlin, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda under presentations. That'll bring us to our good friend Nicholas Larson, Forest Service updates. District Ranger, Forest Service, Pisgah National Forest. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me today. First off, I want to apologize. I think it's been a while since I've been here to update folks, so thank you for carving out a little time. In all reality, I don't have anything super pressing for Burke County, so what I've got is just a list of a couple of projects that we've been working on and a couple of projects to be looking at in the future, and just throwing those out there to see if you guys have any feedback on those or have anything else that you'd like me to come back and talk more on. So the first one that I want to spend a little bit of time on is some trail projects that we're working on in Linville Gorge. As you guys know, Linville Gorge is one of the most visited wilderness areas in the East Coast. Incredibly popular area. We really appreciate all of Burke County's support in the management of it. And in the past couple of years, we've added about 2.7 miles to that trail system. And while that doesn't sound like a big number, the notion behind that is to be able to create an opportunity for people to take a backpacking loop. Historically, the route that folks were taking crossed private property. This trail system that's in place now allows them to stay entirely on federal land when they're on a multi-day trek in Linville Gorge. So that's a real good win for us and a real good win for the public's experience out there in the forest. We're continuing on that project. We should see over the next 2 years about another 2.5 miles added to that system there. Again, that's predominantly looking at opportunities to connect those loops so that people have a longer backpacking kind of loop opportunity. We're also targeting some climbing access. As I'm sure you guys know, Linville Gorge again is a premier area for rock climbing, so we're wanting to do that. And then there's also a handful of reroutes of the existing trails that'll just make it easier for us and our volunteer partners to be able to maintain those trails so that they stay on the mountain as opposed to washing down the hill. So we're continuing to make good progress on those and super excited about them. The other one that I'm very happy to announce is this year for the Forest Service, our fiscal year was 2023. It was the first year of the Pisgah Restoration Initiative, which is a national priority program under the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program. National Priority Project really aimed at demonstrating that how through collaboration we can better deliver on conservation and how we can demonstrate that through managing our forests we can meaningfully reduce the cost of wildfire suppression. For those of, I think all of y'all have been around for quite a while, you may remember a similar project that was specific to the Grandfather Project that ended 2 years ago. That was the smallest project in the nation. We were also, not to brag too much, but we were also one of the most successful. We met our objectives of that 3 years in advance. We've been able to leverage those funds and that project and program into a host of other support to reduce wildfire risk to our communities that we serve here, as well as meet some really solid restoration objectives. So this new iteration of that is very, very similar. Same objectives of reducing wildfire risk, restoring fire-adapted forest, treating non-native invasive species, and improving water quality. the footprint for it is just larger. We've now reached out to the entire Pisgah National Forest as opposed to just our response area here in the Grandfather. So we're really excited about that. I am doubly excited that today I've got the first draft of a environmental assessment that'll help us to implement that project. The Grandfather Appalachian Pisgah Restoration Environmental Assessment, or GAP-EA, is getting ready to be released to the public, hopefully in late January, early February. And this environmental assessment is really targeting where we can do the prescribed burning on the National Forest, as well as where we can do the forest restoration work that will help us to restore our fire-adapted forest and reduce risks to our neighboring communities. I can't emphasize enough that this program has been really successful, not only for the Forest Service, but we've been really successful in leveraging this for county support. So if there are communities in Burke County that are particularly interested in getting involved in reducing their wildfire risk, being a part of this organization and having this project here on the Pisgah National Forest can really help them to leverage those federal funds or state funds and be more competitive for some of those competitive grants that are out there. So if any of y'all catch wind of any of those communities that might need a little bit of assistance, don't hesitate to send them my way, and we'll see how we can help them out. The other one that I wanted to kind of quick touch on is just outside of Burke County, but I know it impacts a lot of the residents here and a lot of the businesses, and that's the Wilson Creek corridor. I'm super excited to say that we've just acquired a new parcel of property around the Deer Horn Park area. So what's super interesting and what's super exciting for the Foothills Conservancy is that takes that entire watershed and means that well over 50% of that land base is now in some sort of conservation holding. I don't have to tell you guys the importance of Wilson Creek and the water and the people that are relying on that. I think many of us here in the mountains know the importance of that. The excitement that we've got around that, and I'm sure likewise you guys know the amount of visitation that we get there in the summertime is just phenomenal. We just get overrun with heavy use. And we've entered into an agreement with Carolina Land and Lakes RC&D to do a corridor study along Wilson Creek to find out how we can better respond to the existing uses that we have, how we can make sure that the folks that are out there are accessing the river corridor safely, how we're able to keep up with them, how we can provide for parking, garbage disposal, all those kinds of things that right now we just don't have the infrastructure in place to do. So pulling together a plan for that. We're expecting sometime later on this winter to start reaching out to some of the community members, some of the local businesses and things, and hopefully you guys can help connect us with any of those interested in Burke to find out how we can just really make sure that we're providing for the best experience for everybody out there and providing for the interest and needs of the community for whatever interest that y'all may have in Wilson Creek. The last one I wanted to give a quick update on is fire season. We're kind of on the tail end of or we should be on the tail end of our fire season, I should say, but we're not. So we haven't had a huge fire response here in Burke County. We have 2 large fires in McDowell County that we're managing right now. The Locust Cove fire is about 164 acres, and the Clear Creek fire is about 125-ish acres. We should have final numbers on that here shortly. Burke County, at least on the U.S. Forest Service side, has not seen a whole lot of escape fires or any responses there. And I want to thank you guys for the support of the North Carolina Forest Service and being able to manage that, and also just the residents as a whole, for being very careful with their fires and their debris piles and making sure that they're out before they leave the area. And that saves us quite a bit. I think those are the main ones that I wanted to kind of run through with y'all, and I'm happy to open up for questions, or if there's anything else that y'all would like me to come back with, or come back another time to talk more about, I'm more than happy.
Nick, thank you. Gentlemen, questions, comments?
Yes, sir. I'd like to, Darby, were you doing anything with the restoration of the American chestnut in the Pisgah Forest? And my second question is, what invasive species do you have to deal with mostly up there?
So invasive species and American chestnut. So we are just starting. The U.S. Forest Service, and this is predominantly in the realm of research right now, is starting to develop the silvics and the practices of reintroducing American chestnut. They've been making strides on its resistance to the blight, but specifically here in our clay soils, there's another disease, Phytophthora, that is also going after, or historically goes after American chestnut, and they're working on the resistance and resilience to that as well. That's much more of an issue to us here in the southern apps in our clay soils that are not quite as well drained. What I'm super interested in is the research that's going into that right now. If you think about it, we've got a wealth of science for all of our tree species out there on the forest, but not so much American chestnut, because we really have not been managing it for over 100 years. So there's a lot to learn about how we can be successful in planting these trees out and making sure that they have the room and the space and that they're protected to be able to come up. Some of the limited research that we do have says that there's over 90%, I'm blanking on the right word, but animals will eat 90% of the nuts and the young shoots of American chestnut. As you can imagine, deer will mow through an oak really easily, and a chestnut has a lot less tannins, is going to be a lot tastier to a deer and some of our game species. So there's a lot that we're trying to learn right now. I'm optimistic that hopefully in my career we'll be in a position where we're starting to outplant them. Yeah. For NNIS, uniquely in the Pisgah Restoration Initiative, a lot of our effort on treating weeds is really targeted not so much on the species as opposed to the habitat. So as you can imagine, I think everybody knows the challenge that we have with things like kudzu. We're not trying to go out and eradicate all kudzu across the landscape. We're rather taking a different approach and saying, where are the critical habitats that we have? Where is maybe a rare plant growing that if we don't do this NNIS treatment, that plant is then going to be threatened? That's kind of the notion that we're taking right now. The past 2 years, a lot of our efforts have been in some of the limited wetlands that we have on the National Forest. You guys know the National Forest is made up of the lands that nobody wanted, so if there was a creek by it, there's probably some flat land and there's a house on it as opposed to forest. So we're pretty limited on wetlands, and a lot of our treatments are focused around there. We do have an initiative in Wilson Creek to go after the Japanese knotweed, and that's tied directly to those wet areas and water quality.
Gentlemen, other questions? Nick, got a couple. Number one, how's your funding?
How's the funding?
Yeah.
Well, with the advent of the Pisgah Restoration Initiative, we're looking good for a lot of the work that we're doing. For the year, we're still in a continuing resolution, but that's for Congress to figure out for us.
And at some point, we've got to get that parking area addressed, as we always talk about. For you and I've talked about a lot of times.
That's right.
Round
Yep.
Mountain Overlook.
Yep.
And I know there wasn't a lot of interest in as far as contractors wanting to do that project. Since I know it's been proven tough.
Yep.
But you see any way forward on that project at this point?
Yeah, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to shake it out with to find a way to be able to support that. It's just a difficult time until we have a final budget for me to make those commitments. We're limited to just sticking to ongoing projects at
Turbines.
this point. Yep.
I understand. And you answered pretty much controlled burn. I knew we were going to do one below Ginger Cake.
Yep. Yeah, we have. That's actually the Steels Creek area. That's one of our highest priorities going into this spring, is to get that area addressed. As you guys can imagine, it's right next to 181, so getting the right weather and getting the right winds are kind of limited, but that's the one that we will put everything that we've got when we have the opportunity for it.
And another one, this is just small, maybe you know, maybe you don't know. Bridge replacement down there across Linville River.
That's actually State Bridge.
I mean-
the actual bridge that crosses.
Yeah,
the
but I
road.
didn't know whether you knew whether they were going to build another one across the river down there to connect those trails, Finch Ridge and the ones on the west side.
Oh, within the actual gorge.
Within the actual,
Yeah, within the actual gorge. No, right now we're not looking at the replacement of those
is
bridges.
it flooding?
Yeah, and it really comes down to it floods, right? So, so the fear is if we put another bridge in, that it'll be tested within a few years. years and get washed down. So we likely will not replace another footbridge in Linville Gorge.
Yeah, I was severely disappointed coming down Conley Cove Trail years ago, and my wife and I didn't know the bridge was out. And so
Yeah.
we walked up, and I'm like, and we got dropped off on 105. And I mean, you're going to have to swim.
Yeah.
And so, anyway.
Well, we'll start looking in the next couple of years at planning the north end of Linville Gorge for trails, and hopefully we can find a way to connect further up. One of the interesting things in working with the designated wilderness area too is we're limited to the amount of man-made structures to be able to put in there. So there's an ethos around really making it a challenging place to experience, and having a very limited amount of things like signs, things like bridges and structures or buildings. So we've got guidance to not have a whole lot.
Just need one.
Yeah, we need just one. Yeah, I hear you.
Jim, any other questions or comments?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. You said signs, that was going to be my question. We had a lot of visitors up there this year as far as parking and signage. And I know we put out a lot of things on the web about if you're going for a day trip, if you're going for a 2-day trip, take this, take this. You feel good about what we're doing? Is there anything else to do so that somebody will not get hurt?
Yeah, I think we're doing really good, and I really appreciate the work that Ed's doing in preparing people that are out there or that are heading out into the forest. We've had increases in the amount of recreation staff that we have. So I've got more resources to help now than I did 10 years ago to help with that visitor interface out there. So we are hoping to, in the next couple of years, kind of give a facelift to this side of Linville Gorge and how folks are accessing it. And I'd be really interested to talk with either yourself or Ed on what are the best ways to be able to reach some of those folks. Parking capacity is one of the things that is a real big limit for us. We've got most busy weekends, we've got folks staffing up there literally just telling people where to park. So I'm hoping that we can find ways to encourage people to come during the week, encourage people to really plan their trip, to know where they're going to be at, and get that dispersed. And
Are there ways to fix the parking?
there's limited. The challenge that we're in with a lot of our spots is just the challenge of the landscape. We have mountains, and I'd love to be able to say I've got a plan to be able to increase the parking size at like Table Rock picnic area, but the mountain is only so big up there, so we don't. That's one of the things that I'd want to take a hard look at is where can we make some improvements. I don't want to build up anybody's expectations because I don't think we'd be able to improve a lot. We can make minor improvements, and I hope we get to do that, but yeah, I don't see a lot of opportunity to say triple the size of that parking lot, which is kind of what we need.
Jim, any other questions, comments? Nick, thank you, sir.
Thank you guys, appreciate
Great
it.
presentation.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda under presentations. That'll bring us to work development, economic development update presented by our good friend Alan Wood. Well, I think we kept him off the golf course today because of this.
It was awfully nice this afternoon, wasn't it? I'll start, and this just popped up last week. We moved from Tier 1 to Tier 2 on the state system, 1 being the most severe to 3 being the least challenged. This was based on improvement in our income and population growth. So we moved out of the 40 bottom up closer to the middle in the state on those 2 numbers, which moved our ranking up. I don't know that it has a huge impact on us. There are some things grants-wise that it will have some impact on. But, that's what we all work on is you like those Tier 1 advantages, but you also like to see your numbers improving. So it's a little bit of a mixed package there, but we do like to see, especially that population growth number is important to us for the future. We will have Project Fern that is on the Rural Infrastructure Authority's board. for determination this Thursday. We do anticipating that being approved. That is 25 new jobs and $1.1 million, and it's an expansion of a local company. Construction should return on the business park site shortly. There's some things that went on there and changed the size of the building, changed the footprint and so forth. Everything is current with the contractor. I spoke with them last week. I spoke with the company today, and they are very confident that they have everything squared away. Unix in general, just a couple of things. They've moved into our top 10 of private employers, and they're also in the top 10 in tax base in the county right now. So that's some interesting numbers. And they have finished out and just closed out that building reuse grant that had been approved, and so we're waiting to release that deed of trust right now. So they've been a good partner for us. I will mention that we're getting ready to start year 3 of our opt-in program. That's in concert with Working Burke, with the community college, with our local business and industry, and our high school. We had 22 graduate last year. It is our goal to have 40 complete that program this year. And I think you'll like this piece of it. We're working towards a cohort of 10 students to run through a 70-hour course at the new trades facility, and we're looking to get 10 slots. To BDI is going to do 2. I've talked with several other people. Community college may do a couple that we provide scholarships to those, so they'll have like 3 weeks of classroom opportunity and then 5 weeks working with local industry in the construction trades. I think that'll be big for us to try and expand the construction trades, which is the goal of that building. Our goal for this year is a minimum of 40 students graduating through those slots. If we're effective in the cohort program for construction, there are several others such as food service and possible medical that we can look at doing that next year. So we just continue to try to change and adapt that program. The mega site, we are continuing to work on that. We have grants pending from Golden Leaf and North Carolina Railroad. Those are to continue to help us with our due diligence and our site plan and development. We basically completed all of the preliminary due diligence on the 570-acre site. We do need to do some geotechnical work there on that big pad. There is currently a rezoning request that will be in front of the planning board on December the 7th. That's this week. Most of the large pad is already industrial. We're looking to rezone the entire site to industrial. There are a couple of parcels that will not be included in that. It's obvious that they will not be developed, so we will not include those in that request. We plan on then go towards the design build phase of this. Once we get all this due diligence, we'll know, what the start planning what the footprint looks like, where infrastructure needs to go, and all that. So those are the next steps. I'd love to have some preliminary work done on that by next summer, so we can have a marketing piece put together while we continue to work on this. I'd like to be able to go to clients, potential clients and site developers and say, hey guys, we can put X amount of square feet in here. This is the infrastructure. This is the timeline. We can be ready to go. And so that's middle of next year. We are still waiting from OMB to provide us with the details on how we will access the funds that the legislature has provided for us on this. And I did get an email on that this morning, so I do anticipate that to be forthcoming sooner rather than later. We continue to work on the Drexel site, and we think that we'll probably let a contract or put an RFP out for grading on that entire site in February or March and have grading begin on there in May. That is a overnight success. It's only taken us 7 years to get there. Of course, that's a brownfield project, and anytime you get into EPA and brownfield, It's just a very laborious, cumbersome, but that piece of it is done. We're just waiting to get some wells in so they can continue to monitor that. Most of that work is done. It's all been approved to be paid for. And so now we're getting to infrastructure extension and the grading piece of it. We did just receive a report back on potential speculative building in the county. Some of the important things there is said that we probably would benefit from that. Probably 75 to 100,000 square feet, 30-foot clear. We have had 17 projects that we have not been able to respond to in the last 90 days because we don't have a building. There's not a building within 40 miles of here that is acceptable for a large industrial project. They do not exist. So the final report with all the changes should be out early or the end of this month. We've had 2 projects announced this year, capital investment of $26.3 million, 125 jobs. And since 2020, $219 million of capital investment, 847 new jobs on 13 projects.
Alan, thank you. Gentlemen, questions, comments?
Alan, do we know what the megawatt capabilities are at Drexel, where the old Drexel Heritage plants were?
Quickly, you can get 10 megawatts in there. If you're going to go to 20 plus, it'll probably take you 24, 36 months. If you're going to go beyond that, you're going to have to go back and get a new right-of-way and bring a new distribution line into the site. So 20 is the quick answer. You get beyond that, it can be done. It just will take time and money. 20 megawatts for a lot of projects is sufficient. Other than heavy stuff, but 20 is a pretty good load, and that would handle a lot of projects that would come into that site.
Jim, any other questions, comments, Ralph? Did a good job. Alan, thank you.
Thank you.
Without objection, gentlemen, this item will remain on the agenda under presentations. That'll bring us to finance presentation of fiscal year 2022-2023 audit presented by Margaret Pierce, our finance director. Margaret, how are you?
Good, thank you, sir. You've got your audit books this afternoon, and our audit firm, Loudermilk & Church, will be here. They'll be represented by Phil Church and Rick Hammer at the next meeting. Between now and then, they'll likely send their highlights for you to review over it, but you have a chance to do your light reading and study up and ask all the questions you'd like.
Gentlemen, at this time, are there any questions?
Margaret, just one question that you may can do this off the top of your head. On page 83 of the audit talks about the Crescent Point Capital Project Fund. Can you just refresh our memory on as to what that is, if you have that on top of your head?
I can. That was the water project that ran out toward Lake James. It was a joint project with the city done probably 15, 20 years ago. And there are still surcharges collected on that and set aside for future repairs on that line.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments at this time, gentlemen? Margaret, thank you. Then without objection, this item will remain on the agenda under presentations. This moves us to item number 5, scheduled public hearings. There are none, so we can move to item number 6, consent agenda. And item number 1, Partners Health Management Finance Reports for the period ending September 30th, 2023, presented by Dr. Paula Holt, Regional Director of Partners Health Management.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Epley, thank you very much for giving me a few minutes this afternoon. I won't take much of your time. Mostly what I wanted to do today was just give you a little bit of context about Medicaid, members at this particular point in time. Of course, last Friday, Medicaid expansion went into effect, and the state suggests that maybe 600,000 additional people might join the Medicaid rolls, but we're not sure about that. You can be eligible, but you have to apply also. So we'll have to wait and see how that impacts Burke County. So let me just give you a little bit of a view about what's going on in Burke County. Remember, now this is through Partners and we serve, the way that Partners works is one of our elements is that we have contracts with the providers in Burke County. And then they work with folks, and then through the invoicing process, then our providers get paid. So here in the first element, it talks about 3792 unduplicated Burke County Medicaid members. So it says 12 rolling months. We keep numbers that way because a lot of times the numbers stay pretty consistent. So some people drop off because they're finished with their mental health therapy or with substance use treatment, and then others come on. So at this point in time, and I think I was, I don't see it up there, but I wrote second quarter, and it's first quarter. I think maybe I didn't nap long enough on that given day. These numbers are for the first quarter, so July, August, and September of 2023. Medicaid penetration rate is 30%. So enrollees for Medicaid for us, for our MCO, are 12,651. And so if we serve 3792, that's 30% of those. And so when you think about that, it might seem like, well, we spend a lot of money in mental health and substance use and intellectual disability treatment, but these are probably our most intensive situations. So most circumstances, and in the counties around here, are mostly a 25 to 30% penetration rate. So it's actually pretty good. It's a little higher, but that also means that hopefully we're meeting the needs of some of those folks that are Medicaid members. And then 903 receive services through the providers in Burke County through non-Medicaid, and that's mostly state funds. There's some additional funds. Some of the funds that the Board of County Commissioners offers or has approved go through those 903. So I'll show you that in my last slide. So just this is where I put second quarter. It's first quarter. Like I said, I probably should have slept that day. So just so you see, the three main categories that Partners works with would be intellectual developmental disabilities, mental health, and substance use. And so I just kind of wanted to give you a number to know how many we're working with or how many our providers are working with. And you can see in terms of mental health, adult is our largest number. That's almost 2,000 folks in an unduplicated count that are seeking mental health services here in Burke County through a provider.
Dr. Holden, I want to stop you there if I can.
Sure.
Okay, I hate to interrupt you, but we're always talking about providers. I want you to give all of us an overview of who the providers are in Burke County.
Well, that's a good question. I've just been in this job 7 months, so I don't have all of those names in my head.
We don't either.
I would be more than happy to develop a list of those and bring those back to you so that you could know exactly who. I mean, one example is Focus, who's a provider in this community that contracts with Partners.
If you don't mind doing that, and the provider, if you'll let us know what they provide.
Sure.
I'd like to know that, okay?
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
All right, thank you, sir.
I'll be happy to do that. So I just wanted to kind of have a sense about, luckily for substance use, I don't know if that number is reflective. It's a little smaller, but probably for older adolescents and whatever, there's not as many programs that they can get involved in. So most of them end up in mental health situations. Here, just so you see the money that is spent, you can see that mental health was the largest category in terms of numbers, but in terms of the amount of money that's spent, by far the amount of money that Medicaid dollars are spent on is intellectual developmental disabilities, because those are most times very complicated situations, and they're expensive for all the different providers. One of the things that's going to come back that a little later in the spring is tailored plans. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept, but anyway, the idea about it being much more intensive work that we're going to be doing with Partners, because we're going to start to include health, pharmacy, as well as mental health and substance use all in one kind of intensive work with families. so that we can take them through everything. It seems smart to be able to do that because most folks that have health issues might also have other issues too that need to work with.
Do we have providers for the tailored plans? Or is that just in-house for the partners?
No, that we have providers for that. I think that the one thing that you should know, the state with managed care organizations a few years ago went to pull direct services away from the MCOs. So we, with the exception of our care managers, we don't provide direct services, so it is the providers in the community. But our care managers are actually going to increase the number of them because you have to plan with the family. Okay, this is, you know, your visit to your physician, this is your visit for mental health issues and or substance use, and so it's going to be a little bit more intensive, and I think more folks from partners actually will be working with families. But when I bring you a provider list, I'll bring back an update on that too, and let you know. And then just know, this is the last part, just I took a snapshot. It's not all the money that the Board of County Commissioners has approved for partners to use for some of these various reasons. But two at the top, I just kind of wanted to note. Correctional Behavioral Health is an online service that's provided, but they do crisis assessments in the jail. And so during the first quarter, from July, August, September, there were 43 of those. So just know that if someone comes into the jail and is in a situation where they might have suicidal ideation or might have some pretty severe circumstances, we have a provider that offers services there, Correctional Behavioral Health. Catawba Valley Healthcare is in person at the jail, and so their substance use services where they actually have folks that are there that are actually working with our inmates at the jail. So just to kind of tell you those two things, and I would say just from, I can't speak for the sheriff or for Captain Huffman, who's the jail captain, I think they're very pleased with those two groups that are providing services to them, and I think that we're able to kind of help folks that unfortunately find themselves in jail and then end up, you know, being released at some period of time to go back out into the larger Burke community. So we want to make sure that we've been able to offer them as much assistance as possible, and I think many folks believe that to do that in the jail is a good circumstance. So we appreciate what the Board of County Commissioners has approved to be able to do that, and I would tell you both those providers, Correctional Behavioral Health and Catawba Valley Healthcare, are both very much appreciated by the sheriff and by the folks that work in the jails.
Dr. Holden, if you do have any data that supports that this is helping the inmates, I'd like to see some of that also.
Okay. I'm going to work on all of this homework as we get going, as I grow into the job. I'm sorry that I'm not
no, that's
back and forth on it at this point.
That's okay. This is something that should have happened before, and I'm a little bit more interested in some of these things now than I was in the past.
Okay. I'll bring that back to you. So that was primarily what I wanted to just tell you, just to give you a basic overview. I know it's not all of the elements, but I didn't know if you had any specific questions that I could not answer.
Gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Holden, do you have a breakdown of what kind of substance abuse you're dealing with? Is it alcohol? Is it opioids? I mean, what percentage of the money or the contacts that you're making fall into what category? I know substance abuse is substance abuse, but
Yeah, most substance use, this poly substance, use, most people that are involved in alcohol then also get involved in other things too. So, and I'm not positive about whether we break that out enough for you to see, but at the same time, I'm doing my homework for the commissioners. I'll be, if I can find that and we can parse that out, I'll be more than happy to show that to you too.
because I was looking at the breakdown on the age, and I'm assuming that 21, where that demographic starts, is because that's when you become a legal age to drink. Or
Yeah. And so again, the one thing you need to know about that is for over 21, for many, use the example of men over 21 who may not have even been eligible for Medicaid. So this might be a different population than those folks that you might even have in your own head. It's not like this is not the entire world of everyone that's gone for substance use treatment, but just those that have gone through Medicaid eligibility. But let me look for that too. all those things are good things and things I'm glad you're interested in. I think you ought to know about those, and I will figure it out and get to you on that.
Thank you.
Jim, any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, if the board would like to hear some of the follow-up, and if Dr. Holden thought 2 weeks was enough time to answer Commissioner Carson's questions, you may consider moving that on the agenda to a presentation versus a consent, or we could certainly follow up and get him back at our next meeting or sooner if that's not enough time. But on the consent, it may not be the prototype report out that Commissioner Carson was looking for.
It is not, and that would be, I think, very appropriate to let him come back, since there are a lot of questions that we won't answer, and a lot of data that we really need to see.
So,
Is 2 weeks enough? Do you feel comfortable
or
with
do
that?
you, would you rather come back at a different meeting and put it under,
Well, I would love to come back in 2 weeks. I think that might be a little too tight with
Okay.
knowing the way things work internally, but I'd be glad to come back in January. Yeah.
are you good? All right, I think that, which is, I want to make sure you have enough time to, especially this time of year, to accumulate the data.
Yeah, it gets a little nutty here. So what's the January meeting?
I'll work with you
Okay,
offline.
all right, well,
and
we're
get-
going to
yeah,
meet anyway.
Yeah. that's
Okay. Thank you very much, and I'll bring those answers back to you.
Dr. Holden, thank you. I told you we'd get you out of here in time because you got to go do this presentation down in Rutherford County now.
Yeah.
So, safe travels.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda, consent agenda. That'll bring us to item number 2 under consent, 2024 commission appointees. As you all know, we have roughly 20 boards or commissions that we are members or appointed to serve on. And so if there's any changes that you would want to make to your current appointments, please reach out and let me know. And, yes, sir.
Just a quick question for clarification. Are we going to leave that on consent, or are we going to move that to a January meeting for Dr. Holden's presentation?
The prior, what would you like to do?
I thought what.
We're just going to come back and put it under in the January meeting.
If you want to leave the financial report on the consent agenda and follow that up with a January more of state of the, to answer Commissioner Carson's question, just kind of state of the agency, I think both are appropriate.
Yeah, let's leave this part on the consent agenda and then we'll move where it's appropriate in January.
Perfect.
Yeah, for simplification's sake. Is that okay? Well, gentlemen, on commission appointments, like I said, just reach out to me if you want some consideration into doing, wanting another, to change anything on here. It's quite a long list and keeps us all very busy. So without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That'll bring us to item number 3, resolution establishing the Board of Commissioners 2024 meeting schedule, presented by Kay Dronhart. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have your 2024 proposed meeting schedule in your packet. It sets pre-agenda meetings on the first Tuesday of the month, except for the month of December, as well as no pre-agendas in the month of July and August. Sets our regular meetings for the third Tuesday in the month. Establishes a budget planning retreat for March 7th and 8th at the Lake James Park Visitor Center in Nebo. It acknowledges that the Commissioners Association Conference will be held in Winston-Salem August 8th through 10, 2024. And sets our organizational meeting in December, the first Monday in December at 2 o'clock. Then we have a reception at 2:30, and then we have our pre-agenda at 3 or shortly after 3, whenever the reception is over. But that's the gist of this resolution. If anybody has any scheduling conflicts or trips planned for 2024, if you would let me know, we'll try to work around that. I'll be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that will bring us to item number 4, adoption of rules of procedure for 2024. And I'll call on our county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As part of your annual December meeting, adopting your rules of procedure, which govern how the board conducts its business meetings monthly for consideration. Two changes, changing the word regular to pre-agenda for meetings where we're covering and setting the agenda, and then a proposed change under item 4, which is your annual organizational meeting, to add the words "as needed" for the annual appointment of county attorney, county tax attorney, and county clerk. Are the only changes from the prior year, and that entire packet, of course, or is in your packet for consideration. But happy to answer any questions the board may have on those changes.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. County Manager. Then without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That brings us to item number 5, removal from an appointment to the Council on Aging, and this will be presented by Kay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to remove the name of Eleanor Summers from the Council of Aging roster. She passed away in October, but we were fortunate enough to have an application come in from Miss Sherry Gass to potentially fill that vacancy, and the term would be to complete an unexpired term ending November 30th, 2024.
Gentlemen, questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Kate. Without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That will bring us to item number 6. Adult Care Nursing Home CAC update and appointments. This will be presented by Christina Franklin of the Western Piedmont Council of Governments. How are you?
Hey, I'm fine. So I'm going to give you guys an update on our Community Advisory Committee. Burke County Joint CAC Committee resumed visitation last year in 2022 after a 2-year restriction on our visits by the State Long-Term Care Ombudsman due to COVID. We currently have 5 active members. We have 1 member who is on a leave due to a family illness, and then we have 1 member that we're going to put forth some effort to try to reach. We haven't had any new CAC members during this time, during this break. In 2019, we were given some new training standards by ACL, and the state had until October 1st, 2021 to make those updates, but due to COVID, they didn't get those updates done by that time. So we are currently waiting on a pilot training program from the state. There's 4 pilot programs. Our region is going to submit applicants for the 3rd pilot program. We currently have 2 applicants for Burke County, so we'll be submitting those and hopefully getting them trained in January of 2024. So our new training program is broken up into 3 phases. The first phase is actually a independent study phase. The second phase is the training through the state, and then the 3rd phase is actually done by me and our CAC. So it will take us several months to get these folks in and trained and ready to visit. I think that's it for our CACs, and then we needed to add, I think, 1 new seat. I think what happened was when we combined our when we combined our nursing home and our adult care home committees to a joint committee, we did not have the Berkeley open, and so the Berkeley has since opened, and we need to add a seat for that facility based on the general statute that I reviewed. And I sent that to Kay as well, so. Any questions?
Gentlemen, any questions or comments for Christine? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Have a good day. Then, gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. And this brings us to Madam Clerk again, reappointments to the Board of Health.
If I could just make a clarification on the adult care nursing home item. we've got, we're going to try to get John Cook, we're going to move him to a reappointment, so he will not be requesting his removal. And then we're reappointing Roger Hart and Dolores Huffman to complete the remainder of 3-year terms ending May 31st, 2026. And that was in addition to adding that one seat.
Okay.
Okay, so we're ready for Board of Health?
Yeah, Board of Health,
Okay.
please.
All
Thank
right.
you.
This is a request to reappoint Dr. Nicholas Thomas, seat number 6, representing Dennis Streetfield. Seat number 7, registered nurse, would be Barry Nelson. Seat number 9 is at large, is currently vacant, and we have proposed to appoint Kami Irvin to complete an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2024. And for seat number 10, to reappoint Dr. Laura Grattan. Also for and those other 3 would be for 3-year terms ending December 31st, 2026.
Gentlemen, questions? Then without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 8, Madam Clerk, reappointments to the EMS Peer Review Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to remove Rand Lingerfeld and Cassandra Reed's name from the roster and thank them for their service. We're asking to reappoint Dr. Anthony Frank, seat number 1, for the remainder of a 2-year term ending November 15th, 2025. We're waiting on Nicole Hudson's application, so this is a request to reappoint her or appoint someone new to fill that seat, which represents EMS personnel for a 2-year term ending November 15th, 2025. We are requesting to appoint someone to seat number 7, first responder for the East. We're expecting an application. We don't have it at this time. I'll keep you updated on that. And we're requesting to appoint Terry Lale to seat number 9, representing 911 Communications for the remainder of a 2-year term ending November 15th, 2025. Be happy to answer any questions.
Gentlemen, questions? Without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, item number 9, appointments or reappointments to the TDA.
Okay. I got my papers out. This is a request to make some appointments or reappointments to the Tourism Development Authority. Seat number 1 is collector of occupancy taxes. Seat number 2 is appointed by Morganton. They are meeting tonight, and I expect that Mr. Winkler's application will be sent in the morning. Seat 3 is also up. That represents Valdez, and Marissa's application is in the packet. Seat 5 is Travel and Tourism at Large. Ms. Dana Wisnut currently holds that seat, and we received her application today, so that's in your inbox. I also provided a copy for you at your desk. And then number 7 is, seat 7 is Travel and Tourism at Large, is occupied by Mike Watts, and we have his application. For seat number 1, we have 2 applications on file, one from Debbie and I'm sorry, I forgot Debbie's last name, and another lady, Mandy Nix. So we have 2 applications on file for seat number 1. So we would probably need to move this to your decision item agenda. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have. And all those terms would be 2-year terms ending December 31st, 2025.
Thank you, Kay. Gentlemen, this will, since we do have multiple applications, will need to be moved to items for decision. And so, is that the pleasure of the board? All right, Madam Clerk, we'll move that item to items for decision. Lots of paper. Thank you, Kay. That brings us to item number 10, under consent agenda, approval of budget amendment number 5 presented by our county manager, Mr. Brian Epping.
Turn on the lectern. Item number 10 is budget amendment number 5 on the year, which is recognizing a public safety grant that'll be primarily used for emergency management and EMS. There are no matching funds or local funds required. This is flow through an amount of $206,435. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments, gentlemen? Then without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That'll bring us to item number 11, finance signature card update presented by Margaret Pierce, our finance director. Hey again.
I'm back. You have in front of you a request to update one of our signature cards, our inmate trust account. They have staff at the jail that issues checks to released inmates. If they get a card, unless they're going to another facility typically, then they'll get a paper check. And we need to update some of the signatures on there. One of the signers, Miranda Beaver, has left the county, so we'll remove her and we'll add 2 others, Matthew Johnson out of our office to assist in being that finance officer that has to be on those checks, as well as adding another staff from the jail, Randy Carswell.
Gentlemen, questions? Thank you, Margaret. Without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That brings us to item number 12, Tax Department. Presented our friend John Bridgers, our tax administrator, tax collection report for November 2023, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Through November 30th of 2023, we have collected year-to-date $34,499,223.16. That's 73.05% of the budgeted amount, leaving a balance to collect of $14,200,353.84. Motor vehicle tax, year-to-date, we have collected $2,382,848.61. That's 38.43% of the budget amount, leaving a balance to collect of $3,817,151.39. Current year taxes, we have collected $40,882,071.77. That's 69.41% of the budget amount, leaving a balance to collect of $18,071,505.23. Delinquent taxes, we have collected $419,735.93. That's 59.96% of the budget amount, leaving a balance to collect of $280,264.07. Penalties and interest, we have collected year-to-date $142,177.29, which is 41.21% of the budget amount, leaving a balance to collect of $186,822.71. So of the total year collected amounts, year-to-date is $38,499,223.16. That is 71.52% of the collected. A balance to collect is $15,331,606.63. Any questions?
Gentlemen, questions? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. And we'll move on, John, to release refund report for November 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amount of the report for the NCVTS is $2,080.80. A net release, report amount is $25,679. The rebuild amount was $2,080.80. Net release of $23,599.19. there were no refunds at all. And the NCVTS refunds over $100 amounted to $670.75.
Thank you, John. Any questions? Gentlemen? Then, there being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlemen, that'll bring us to section 7, items for decision. First item being appointment or reappointment to the Burke County Board of Equalization and Review, presented by Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The terms of Kevin Ferris, seat number 3, and Mary Louise Hatley, seat number 5 on the Board of ENR end December 31st. Both have applied to serve another term, but we also have other applications on file for your consideration. And the term would be a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2026 for both seats.
Gentlemen, questions? And without objection, this item will remain under items for decision. That brings us to item number 2, appointments or reappointments to the Library Board of Trustees. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to reappoint Tiffany Cooper to the Library Board of Trustees, seat number 5, representing a Valdez City resident, for a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2026, and to make an appointment to fill seat number 9. Ms. Burley is not interested in being considered for reappointment, and that term is also for a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2026. And you have 2 applications on file for seat number 9.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Gentlemen, questions on this item? And without objection, this item will remain under items for decision. Madam Clerk, item number 3, appointments and reappointments to the Veteran Service Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to remove some members who are no longer interested in serving another term and one that has passed away. And we are asking you to appoint someone to seat number 1 for to complete a term ending September 30th, 2026. The same thing with seat number 2, same term, to reappoint David Tubergen to seat number 3 and Edwin Ware to seat number 4 to complete the remainder of terms ending September 30th, 2025, and then also to make an appointment for seat number 5 for the same term ending September 30th, 2026.
Gentlemen, questions? There being none, without objection, this item will remain under items for decision. Thank you, Madam Clerk. A lot of work today. Thank you. Madam Clerk, I do want to commend you and the staff for the decorations in here. It is absolutely gorgeous. So wanted to thank you for all the hard work. It looks great.
We had several elves helping us, and we do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Y'all did a great job. Thank you.
I just want you to give them my address.
Well, gentlemen, reports. What I would remind you is to please submit your reports to the clerk ASAP for inclusion in the agenda packet for the regular meeting. As we all know, the Morgan Christmas Parade is tomorrow. We want to meet at the Courthouse Salad Court at 5:15 and be in the lineup by 5:30, and we're entry number 9. And I guess I can bring my golf club since we have golf carts. And so that'll be fun, gentlemen. Regular meeting is December 19th at 6 p.m. I will remind everyone to spay and neuter your pets. Don't litter. Please pick up trash. And cover your loads to the collection sites, please, and the landfill. A general reminder, county offices will be closed December 25th through the 27th for Christmas. And I do want to, and Kay, I think, hopefully you got the email from Ed Phillips. We're having a holiday open house at the new TDA, so we have not gotten any responses yet. And so I did tell him today that I would remind everyone that you are invited to that. It's from 4 to 7 Thursday. And so it's a drop-in, lots of food, lots of drink, beautiful if you haven't been in there, so I'd definitely recommend it. But send out, please, a reminder.
Okay, and we did send out a meeting invite for that event and several other Christmas-related events.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, gentlemen, is there any other discussion items? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Motion carried 5-0.